can you join us today at the Whitewebbs Museum of Transport, which is a fabulous little museum in Enfield in North London. It is only open on a Tuesday for reasons we haven't yet worked out, but it's been here for about 40 years, they were telling us, the volunteers, and they've got a fabulous collection of kind of modernish vintage classic cars in the main building over there. And then outside we've got this yard which has got a railway carriage with a model railway inside it. We've got some railway kind of waiting room areas which has got various auto jumbles and old diesel pumps, that kind of thing in it. Fire engines, ambulances, pre-war cars. It's great fun, we've had a fabulous day. But we decided to bring this with us. It's a bit of a juxtaposition. This is a Hyundai Ioniq5 which we've had on loan from the Hyundai press department for a week. We've been driving it to and from the NEC when we were there over the weekend, and we really do rather love it. It is of course fully electric, has 225 horsepower I think, with a 77 kilowatt hour battery pack. I'm glad to learn all this because I'm not an expert on electric cars, but we really do love it. So in this little video we thought we would show you around the museum a little bit and also show you around the car.
It just goes to show you how far we've come. Like 3-speed gearbox, 30 horsepower, 61 miles an hour.
This is a T-Reg, so it's a 79, but I think it's probably launched about the same time as the Spy Who Loved Me, which is 77.
I do love that interior.
Oh, it's so good, isn't it?
It's like velvety, Alcantara type stuff with the leather.
On the dash it is, yeah. Alcantara on the dash, and then it's leather seats. If you could
as long as you're your height.
Yeah, and as long as you can get up again.
Which rules me out.
Those door handles are...
Allegro? No,
like Morris Marina.
Which are the most used door handles on any car in the world, aren't they?
Okay.
Because they're on the Range Rover.
Oh yeah, they are, yeah.
It's a very interesting colour scheme. I mean, it actually looks like some sort of, you know the way like dinky cars around that time had weird colour schemes?
Yeah, it doesn't look real.
No. Oh, it's a racing one. See the way it's got the bulbous wheel arches?
That's cool.
So Jonathan McCormick had one of these, all decked out in full rally gear.
Oh really?
Yeah. That one's very nice. Okay, so what have you got? Tell me about it.
This is a Ford Model A that seems to have been part of a bankruptcy estate, which is how it's ended up in a museum.
Okay.
And it is the only right-hand drive Ford Model A in Europe. Came from Canada.
So you know the interesting thing about right-hand drive is that most countries didn't actually decide what side of the road to drive on until quite late on in automobile history. So Canada was the 1940s, I think it was about 1946 when they officially said everyone had to drive on the right, isn't it? We drive on the left.
Yes.
With a right-hand drive car.
Correct.
So they drove on either both sides of the road in various different bits of Canada until the mid-40s. The Italians didn't actually change their trucks until the 1980s. So if you ever see old Italian trucks, they are actually mostly right-hand drive.
There's also the Lancias.
And there's the Lancias, but that was a chauffeur thing, so that when the chauffeur pulled into the side of the road. But again, they did not officially decide what side of the road to drive on until the 1930s.
It's been in film productions and it's now been in Mr. Selfridge. Hence it's got Selfridge & Co. in that Selfridge thing on my TV.
Yes. So here we have something that we have a connection to, because this is the rear-engined Fiat 850 that donates our Fiat 899cc engine at the other end of the Cinquecento.
Oh yes.
It powered lots of little like rear-engine cars up until they swapped over to the Fiat 127, and the engine ended up in the front of the Fiat 127, and after that then it was in the Panda, it was in the Uno, and the last car that it ended up in was the Seicento. So it ran from the early 50s right through until 2003, and it was emissions killed it. They had to get rid of it because of the emissions.
Oh, damn emissions.
Automotive urban myths. And it is something you think you should know better about a museum. But on the front of the Fiat, they have this little plaque said to be made of old USSR tank parts and known to be rust buckets. This sort of stuff doesn't really help when it comes to like trying to explain things, because then people get this whole idea about the cars are made from Russian steel, which is an urban myth as well.
Yes.
And realistically, most cars in the 1960s were rust buckets. Very few cars that survived that well. Do you like the Peugeot?
I love the Peugeot. It's very pretty. Is this the Colombo one?
No, he had the older one, which is like the 203, 204.
Oh, okay.
I do like the little
Yeah, like tea cozies.
hairnets.
Header. Well, we're on the motorbike floor, and I'm not really a motorbike fan, neither is Jim, but my favourite one here that I've seen so far is this one, which is a three-wheeled moped. It's probably the most 70s thing I've ever seen. The drive is to just one of the rear wheels.
Oh, well, that means you don't need a differential.
No. Okay. That's so bizarre. It was a sales flop, apparently. What a
Really?
shame.
I have to say, it does look like something that's like just fell straight off the studio floor of 1969 Blue Peter. Okay, I was a very, very spoiled child. Not only did I have the Evil Knievel bike, which is right there,
Right.
but I also had the Winnebago, which kind of was basically a converted Barbie sort of like
that's
dream
awesome.
caravan thing.
That's so fun.
But the thing was, though, it had a ramp you put on the back of the Winnebago, and you sort of like wound up the bike, and then you sent it off, and then it hit the back of the Winnebago, and it went off
Of course it would. Of course it would.
It went off on this jumpy thing,
brilliant.
and it would jump
That's
over the
so
Winnebago.
cool.
You're basically in your wet dream right now, aren't you?
Maybe.
This like Wales was in sort of like 1990. Is this what it looked like?
Actually, yeah, a little bit.
Right,
What am I
so,
typing in 1975?
Probably a complaint to HR about being sexually molested by the boss.
They didn't have HR in 1975. They just
Okay.
had the boss.
So when you think of cars of the century, do you think of the Citroën Evasion and the Peugeot, that's a 405?
Six.
406, and the multiple, and
The Metro cab.
is it? I think it was a Nissan
Oh, is it a
Prairie.
Nissan Prairie?
It's a
It is a Nissan Prairie. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like, cars of the century,
Wow.
the Nissan Prairie.
I've always wanted a Nissan Prairie.
This is very Hubnut. I mean, I can imagine he would love this. Ian would be
Yeah.
sitting going like, oh yes, I remember those, they're absolutely amazing. There's sliding doors, It's one of those things about age. To us, that's a TARDIS, but to this generation of kids, it was literally something that went with your little motorcycle display. Oh, huge hole. This is something we'll cover later on, is the size of the vehicle, in that it is fabulous when you're inside because it has so much room, but on a lot of roads it is a disadvantage because of back there was a pothole, there was a car coming. Our normal cars would have fitted through the gap. That was just, oh god, we're not going to fit. But it does mean that it's an incredibly spacious vehicle inside. I mean, it has limo-like legroom in the back. It's got reclining rear seats. They're both heated. It's absolutely amazing.
It feels like a really special place to be.
Yeah.
Especially with this white leather that it's trimmed in. It's just fabulous, I have to say. It feels like we are in
A private jet.
It does, actually, it does. It feels like we're in a luxury private jet of the future.
Yes,
That's the thing.
because it drives itself.
It does drive itself.
Autopilot.
It does. Because on the motorway, you can press a little button on the steering wheel that lights up a little makes the steering wheel green on the screen, and that is auto steering, so it will steer for you quite happily for hundreds of miles, which we've been doing on the way to and from Birmingham over the weekend.
While it locks onto the vehicles in front and slows down and speeds up.
Yes, that does that too. That's kind of more normal because other cars have that, but I've never seen the self-steering thing before. You have to rest your hand on the steering wheel, otherwise it starts shouting at you, but you're not actually steering, and I call it the Misteron setting, because it really is as if the Misterons have taken control of your car. It's slowing you down, it's turning you around corners, it's really quite weird, and we are living in kind of utopian 1960s version of the future.
I expected it to be a nightmare to charge, and it's actually been fine. The only downside to it is obviously because of the energy crisis. It's been a lot more expensive than what we thought it would be, but that's not a criticism of the car. That's just the current economic environment that we live in. Downsides, yes, you do have 5 apps on your phone now after a week for the various different charging. At the NEC, they had these chargers. There was no app available. You went to a web page, you logged in, and you put in your credit card, and it started charging within 30 seconds. I kind of thought the next day we were back at the NEC would have to go through the whole rigmarole again. Nope. It actually, when I went to the webpage, it remembered me from the previous day, and all I had to do was put in the 3-digit code off the back of my credit card, and off it went. And it was a slow charger, but it was still actually quite cheap. It was only 30p a kilowatt, which is less than the daytime rate that what most people would actually pay on their house rates. So, you know, it has been fairly seamless.
Anything we dislike about the car?
Well, strangely enough, we may intersect this with a conversation we had with Robert. Now, Robert is the head of the social media for the museum we were just at, and he has the Kia version of this car, which both of us agreed was a lot of the functions were possibly designed by nerds, and the idea seems to be a little bit like Jurassic Park. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So, for example, on the Sunday morning when the clocks all changed, the clock in this car didn't change. Even though my 24-year-old Fiat Marea, the clock's changed because it's wired into the radio and it gets the radio signal and it updates. You have to go into the settings on this car and actually select daylight saving automatic updates. For, I'm sure, 99.999% of people, that is not an option that they would want to have deactivated.
You just want it to show you the correct time, whatever time of year it is.
One of the things that I found was that the radar cruise self-steer system, or autopilot for want of a better word, works incredibly well. It's so relaxing just to sit in the car and let it do its thing. You don't really have to think about it. But one of the things was that this car can read speed signs. And when you're on the sections of the M25, which has the variable speed limits, it will actually pick it up and it will display it on the screen that you need to go at a certain speed. But we have been driving along behind a truck. The truck was doing 56 miles an hour. Our cruise was set at 65, and the truck moved over a lane. So even though the car is telling me I'm in a 60 zone, it now started to accelerate up to 65, and this thing is effortless. You don't really notice it, that the speed, it just, all you get is wind noise and tire noise, really. So the difference between 55 and 65, unless you're looking at the speedo, you wouldn't really notice it. And it would have been a situation where, oh, this thing has just got me a speeding ticket.
Yes.
Even though it knows I'm speeding.
Yeah, it kind of, you think those two systems could be related a little bit more. And I suppose the argument against that would be that you don't want your car to control you so much, but crikey, this car controls almost everything else you do anyway so much.
Yeah, and also does it so well. So that's why it does sound like we're nitpicking, but that's only because it literally does everything so well. We're in the future, and that's probably why we wanted to take it to some places that are kind of like little temples of the of the petrol car engine. Yeah. So the museum, and now we're on our way to the Yes Cafe for a late lunch. But yeah, it is the future, and it feels like the future.
It does feel like the future, yeah. But it's an accessible type of future in the sense that it doesn't feel alien. Like the accelerator feels like an accelerator of a petrol car.
The steering feels just like a petrol car.
The way it brakes, once you turn off the weird kind of extra regen braking, once you turn that off, the brakes feel perfectly normal. The power delivery feels entirely normal. It's so smooth and linear, so it makes any petrol or diesel car feel really clunky in the way that it delivers that power. It's exactly how you would expect a car to behave. There's nothing strange about it. The driving position is fabulous. You're higher up. The colour is just gorgeous. It's this weird mix of grey, green and blue, and it's sort of iridescent. And I initially, when I first came in the driveway, when Hyundai came and dropped it off, I thought it was grey, and I was like, oh, boring. And I parked it up. And then I looked at it and thought, oh, it's blue. And then I took a photo of it, sent to Jim, and the photo was green. I think it's all three colours somehow. The inside of it is just beautifully appointed. You've got this just gorgeous stitching along the top line of the doors. And what I love about it is you've got the line of stitching, but it ends about 1.5 inches before the end of the door, which means that this is kind of one piece that has been cut and stitched with that little tuck there. And the same exactly over there on the dash. It's just beautiful. The quality of craftsmanship that has gone into this is just stunning. Things like, you know, you've got these beautiful kind of door pulls here that look like an armrest, but behind them, I don't know whether you can see, it's lit up in the colours of the current mode of the car. So it's currently blue because we're in normal mode, and I think we're now in red, yes, because Jim's just put it in sport mode, and it also lights up around this Bose speaker over there. And you have these little motifs as well, these squares, which seems to be the Ioniq's motif, and they're kind of there on this beautiful little panel on the door. They are on the steering wheel as well, just those 4 little squares. Even the centre console here, like the touch of the feel of it. Oh, you get these perforated leather seats as well, which not only they're heated, but they're also cooling, so you get little fans in them, so you can kind of waft cool air up your bum when you're a bit sweaty on a warm day.
I had a really dopey moment there. I was actually going, well, that fuel's really cheap, should we get some?
The only thing that I dislike about the interior of this car, or kind of driving environment, is it doesn't have a rear wiper. So the rear window does get, on days like this, kind of very dirty and fogged up, which kind of makes it, deletes the premium feel a little bit when you can't see backwards. You've got trillions of charging options. Oh, that noise is that Jim's going over the white line a little bit, and it does lose its shit a little bit every time you end up doing that.
By the way, it wasn't intentional. There was a truck.
Yes, there was. It wasn't that he was unable to drive. The pedals have got a plus and a minus for stop and go, which is quite cute.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, have you not noticed that?
No.
We've got many charging options. We've got USB sockets, 12-volt sockets. We've got wireless charging down here in this sort of funky centre console. And I love this centre console as well, because the Kia version we were just playing with in the museum has a big raised centre console here, which really kind of makes it feel really cramped. Whereas this is so open, and you can lift up the armrest, and it just feels like a proper luxury car here. I mean, this would, for me, feels just as posh as a really luxury Range Rover or a Lexus, and it's a Hyundai.
Oh, you forgot about the more power options in the back. USB and 3-pin plug.
Oh, and the I do love the glove box is a big drawer, so it pulls out like that, and I can actually store my laptop in it.
Quick pit stop at the S Cafe with the electric car. So we're covering all the bases of places you take petrol cars in an electric car today. So now we're going to go to an electric filling station, not just a normal charging point. This is an entire filling station that's geared up for electric cars.
Yeah, let's go. Oh, it's hanger lane gyratory system.
Keep left onto A44 Central London. In 0.2 miles, keep right onto A44.
I've never driven into the ULEZ zone before. Well, I'm not actually driving. Nonna Lina Pizzeria, and then we've got American Furniture Design Centre. A Mercedes-Benz AMG specialist that seems to just be one shop.
Oh, look at the Kia Niro.
Yeah.
The only car of London. Oh, street park Tesla X, Porsche and Bentley. Do you think we're in a posh area there, Sean?
Well, I don't know. Look at that block of flats.
They're probably worth more than like our houses added together.
I think you're probably right. Street parked Audi 80 in the ULEZ zone. So the lady in the Puma behind us in traffic has just sort of parked up and abandoned it in the queue of traffic in order to go to Screwfix. I've never seen a Screwfix. That's like a high street branch of Screwfix. I hate London.
Well, after much traffic, we have finally made it to the electric filling station. So we are now going to fill up the Ioniq with electricity. By the way, this is very squishy, but it does not need to be motorized. There's absolutely no reason for this to be motorized. Your petrol tap isn't motorized. This does not need to be motorized. We need this one.
Yep.
Okay. Then this is the extra. This is the high-powered plug bit. So that comes out, and that goes in. Plug is now connected. Communicating with vehicle. Please wait. Please pay. Payment accepted. Starting session.
Today, please.
It's getting there. I'll take it these little things are sort of like giving you some sort of indication of no, they're not. They're just going
it's
up
like
and down.
it's like the little rolling wheel on a Mac, going. Okay, we're doing it.
I'm gonna get worried if Clippy appears.
Oh, there we
There we
go.
go. And so yeah, this is pretty good going. 28
28.
kilowatt.
Oh no, it's going up.
39,
Go on, go higher. Go on.
40.
Is that it?
40, yeah, it's around 40 kilowatts.
Okay. That's
So,
okay.
I don't know if you noticed or not, but behind us we have the typical Shell sort of service station, Waitrose, Costa. So we're going to go in and make ourselves a little bit comfortable and come out in about 5 minutes and see how this has got on. $37 kilowatt hour. I'm a little disappointed in that. I kind of assumed
Yeah, that's not very fast.
that, like, considering how, like, you know, new age and spacey this all is, that this should have been like really high power chargers, especially considering they have like a 60-minute waiting maximum. Okay, so a lot of these things, what you normally do is you tap the card again to end, but this seems to have an end button, so we're going to press that. Please return the plug. Okay, the plug doesn't want to come out. So if we unlock the car, nope, we're still stuck. So what I found was if we start it, it'll disconnect it. Okay, so we get a message saying unplug to start.
Okay,
There we go.
that worked.
There is probably a much easier way of doing this, but we haven't worked it out yet. Again, EV novices. Okay, drive safe. Does it give you a bill? Tell you how much? No.
No.
So we spent some amount of money there.
Some amounts of money.
Some
Some
amount
pounds.
of money.
You
Okay,
need to put
so
your thing back.
we need to put the thing back. Thank you. And then we press close. Because obviously pushing that down would be, you know, too much like hard work. Like, you know, opening and tailgate's too much like
Of
hard
course.
work. Welcome to 2023. What do they say about scones?
Scones. They're delicious with clotted cream and jam, but swans can break a man's arm, you know.